Wake up. If you're mentally weak, y'all, spiritually they feast, y'all. You better check your masters and your motherfucking sheep. If you're mentally weak, y'all, spiritually they feast, y'all. You better check your masters and your motherfucking sheep, dog.
About this coming savior, the Starman, and it later was connected to Ye, of all people. Infinite Plane Radio. Okay, the phone's picking up. Just give it a second to catch up. Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you for calling.
Hey, what's good, man? How you doing?
Very good. Just kind of looking at these meta-scripted narratives that go back so far. It's intriguing, and I think the space program is, I call it the heaven program, introducing a new concept of heaven that everybody will accept no matter what their religious background, and even the atheists will become fundamentalist believers. I think it's a massive trick. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really interested in even the term metascript. You're the only person I've ever heard use it, and I'm kind of curious when you got hip to this deep of deception. Like how long? Because I've heard you break stuff down that it's always intriguing to me, and it's more than just intriguing though, because it's always aligned with like that deep inner knowing I've spoke to you about already. And the way you break it down is like, I don't know, bro. You seem very studious about this shit, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, it happened
how long you been doing this? Actually?
okay, well, in 2020 in particular, I was noticing that Trump would say things that would connect, that the left would say, wait a minute, he just quoted the segregationist from 1968. And he would say he didn't know. Like he said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. So I looked it up. And then I started to notice that many things that were happening in the 2020 summer news cycles were directly calling back to 1968 with specificity, repeated themes, repeated characters like personages. So I started to think here that they're recycling stories and they're reusing stories, using archetypes. But it got to be so specific that I made predictions and I said, look, if 2021 is modeled off of 1969 in all of its major events and so on, then we're onto something. And we started finding connections with like Watergate, with everything with the Nixon thing and the upcoming insurrection investigation. So many things repeating, late 60s and 2020, that I coined the term metascript because I said apparently they have a script that tells the story in broad strokes, and then there's lots of stories that fall beneath it. But it's the big story. And so an example of a metascript would be global warming, a big prophecy, and a lot of things lead up to it. And as long as they stick to the main story and they always build on it, it kind of leads, it serves to steer our focus.
Right? Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I just think the way you're kind of breaking it down, it's gonna be a lot for people to take in. Like I'm the dude you've been talking to the last couple of times, and we were talking about 9/11. It's gonna take a while for people to even be able to grasp what you're coming with. But the more I detach from this synthetic ass Truman ass world, the more, like I said, I have these moments of just knowing. And I think that people, even if they're like, okay, I can't totally subscribe to what he's on or what they're on, it's a philosophy of like, okay, if you can extract this philosophy of like, you'll never know if it's real or not, that alone is liberating rather than living fucking terrified and scared all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I I think as people wake up, they will be more open to hearing this idea. Because, I've been saying it for years, the world's a stage. And then I come across, your content. And like I said, they're like mystical moments for me. And I'm like, oh boy, is it. And then you talk about a metascript and then just all the, there's too much coincidence. And when you get this far down the path that I'm on, you know that coincidence doesn't even exist.
And when we say world stage, so if there's a world stage, and I contend there is, it's guided by a script, but it's not just a script. It's a script that all the other scripts fall within. In writing, you would call it a fictional universe, like Marvel's a fictional universe, where anybody can write a Marvel comic, but it's got to fit within those parameters. And so the meta script is like the big story that defines this world stage. And I think that people are accustomed to being rushed to believe as fast as the news is reported. So now we're on this information superhighway going super fast. And I'm like, wait a minute, do we have to rush to believe stuff that we don't have facts to back up? So my position here is like
Yeah, well, see,
stepping back. Yeah.
I'll, I'll, I'll tell you one thing that really got me, and this is right. I mean, right around the time that it all started in 2020, but or right before. And I'm not even going to say the names because I just don't want fucking. You know how rappers have like hive mind fan bases and shit like that, and I ain't trying to deal with no shit like that. So I just noticed something was screwy about this murdered rapper, right? And I started seeing all this like symbolism and all this fucking fake shit, just like in my own. It wasn't even because like I saw a YouTube channel or some shit. I was seeing these type of synchronicities in my life, like these numbers and all that. So I was already getting really deep into what all that is, as you were in your experience. But when I started seeing them flashing all of these numbers within this story, this media story that took it over, and everybody was all focused on this guy out of nowhere. And then it, like, without a doubt in my mind, I believe that it was a death faker. And I don't know why they would do that. I mean, spiritual people would be like, oh, they want our loosh and all that. And I get that to a degree, but that's when I was like, oh, fuck, I had no idea how fake rappers were, let alone how fake rappers actually are. You know what I'm saying? So you were one of the few fucking people that I saw even touching on that and breaking that down. And that's when I was like, man, this is way, way more to the saying that the world is a stage. You know what I'm
Oh yeah,
saying?
and
And
when people see this, like, yeah, it's a loosh fest, and they make money and they create martyrs and they make a lot of impact with these fake deaths. But if you look at the initiation structure within the cults that run this place, the Masonic, the New Age, it's always about the candidate is symbolically killed, dies to his old self, and is reborn in the light. So now he's Illuminati. He's initiated. He's seen the light. Everybody else who hasn't is in the dark. And I think the people who believe the news
and
literally are in the dark. And these people who are fake killed,
yeah,
they're shown the light.
man, when I saw you breaking down certain like disguises and stuff like that, I knew that this place was like way screwier than I could have ever imagined. You know what I mean? And I was someone who grew up like idolizing rap. You know what I'm saying? It was like it raised me more than any of my parents did. You know what I mean? This whole culture of hip hop and all this shit. And so me waking up to, you know, the truth, that was harder for me than like, you know, some people who have my experience, they start tripping when they, you know, this might offend some people, but it is what it is. But when they realize how big of a fairy tale this version of Jesus is, it was harder for me to wake up to realize how fake fucking rappers were and like how much it was like, you know, weaponized, and it wasn't just by like happenstance. It was actually designed to fuck up my entire generation and shit. There's still people my age walking around with this crazy programming. So to me, when I started deprogramming myself from society, it really felt as if I had to escape the cult of hip hop, bro. Like, it's so, people don't realize how deep that shit is into our psychology, man, and just like to our processing. And this has been years of me becoming this quote unquote spiritual weirdo just by someone who had enough of just enough shit on my mind that I moved the fuck away and I detached and said, I'm just going to learn to meditate, whatever the fuck that is and whatever that does. And now here we are like 6-7 years later. But it's it was harder for me to realize music was fake and like all these people that I looked up to than it is for these people to still grasp that this bitch might be flat, that we might be on some fucking stationary thing. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that I think when people realize the spell that we're under, man, with these motherfuckers, and because even if like you're aware of it, if you're not like literally go and see, not to ramble on, but the thing that bothers me is like it is a process of initiation, bro. Like I get what I without me ever doing any of the research you did, or without me ever being a part of anything, I just had my own experience, and then I became this unknown initiate into whatever these mysteries are. And to me, it's just like you just three simple words: you're God, homie. Like do something with it. Whether you want to fucking be empowered by it or be enslaved by it, like you're fucking God. And I know that that is the end level of what all these motherfuckers just end up realizing, but they think that they can just be a god without no motherfucking morals. You know what I'm saying? That there ain't no like checks and balances to this shit. And I know deep within my being that the more I liberate myself, the more humble I become, because I realize I can't harm another person because it is like harming myself. You know what I'm saying? And they have it all inverted to where now people are so terrified of the occult, or terrified of numbers, or terrified of symbolism. And I'm someone who was so ignorant to it. I wasn't into it at all. I woke up to it in my own life, and then I realized, oh, these rappers are fake as fuck because they're never going to break down what that fucking single-eyed symbolism means, and what, you know, consciousness actually is, and how they're literally throwing it in your face that they're running that shit. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, you brought up
yeah, man, it's just
you said
really
deep programming, and that's a great point you brought up here, because I think that, and you brought up with any subculture or any religious group, you have closed systems where it does become a separate worldview, and you do sacrifice some elements of your authentic self to become part of it, and to break away from it, it does take deprogramming, and it means that you have to disassociate from caring about what they think when you break rank. And a lot of people just go with the flow with the mass media, because to go against it is to risk being outgrouped. And it's like a hive mind. It's definitely a cult. And I refer to the morning show here, the IPS morning deprogram, because we have literally been programmed. And following a program is being Truman in the Truman Show. And the program is actually part of the meta script.
right.
And if you reject that and you follow
Yeah,
your own
see,
path,
and I'm at a point in my life too. I don't have a problem admitting that, bro. I'm okay with admitting like, damn, I can't believe the spell I was under, and I can't believe the amount of deception that goes into something that was so entertaining, or something that was what somebody thought was for the, you know what I mean? Like music was always in my heart to be like, yo, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. But there was always something like, and even in my older stuff, I've never ever been one of those dudes to be like, yo, I'm gonna kill you and fucking fuck your lady and sell all the dope. And you know what I mean? I was just talking about my life. But when I realized what they did to us through music, bro, I was like, oh my God, like that was my religion. You know what I'm saying? It was like everything to me. And I was like, damn, they did more damage. I think hip hop has done just as much damage, if not more damage, than what 2020 did. But this was over like a 30-year process.
interesting
You know
point
what
there.
I'm saying?
I think you're really onto something. I think you
Hip
really make
hop
a
has destroyed communities, bro.
Yeah, because look, I talk about the TV screen as a reality filter. I call it the digital hoodwink that until you reject it, it filters all of your experiences. And your dominant influences, if that is your filter, do impact all of your
Yeah,
decisions, your choices, your worldview, who you associate with. So it is very interesting to consider the impacts of intentionally spread toxic culture or toxic ideas. It's sabotage, in a way, it's sabotage.
yeah. What was that? There's that one famous video of, I don't know, the guy's, I think his name's Yuri something, and he's like some old general from, I don't even really know. I'm kind of ignorant to who he even is, but he breaks down the 30-year plan that it takes to take over a society from the inside out and become, turn them into like the Marxist communists and shit. And
Oh,
I think
yes,
we're like
yes.
deep into those phases, deep into those something Begneglimov or some shit
Yeah,
like
Yuri
that.
Bezmenov,
It's a
and he
pretty
called it
chilling video to watch. Yeah.
demoralization. He
So,
said demoralization. And I
yeah.
think they have done that, and they've also flooded the truther community with so much miscellaneous, disconnected information that they've destroyed any sort of articulated concept of truth outside of the mainstream. They've just flooded the zone. It's a
Yeah,
mess.
it kills all the counterculture, bro, when they are the counterculture, and then they are the subcultures, and then it's like just keep them fighting over theories now rather than I just say, hey, we're being lied to. I don't really give a fuck. That's why I was willing to have the such to you it's normal, but to me that's a wild ass convo to have about 9/11. I'm willing to have that though because like I said, I am not an absolutist here at all. I am just like the level of power they have and the level of manipulation they have at their disposal. It's not out of rule. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how real this shit is, and I think people got to be able to be a bit of an iconoclast and juggle multiple ideas at the same time. That's also why I salute you because I hear you talk about you went into Freemasonry for like study and you went into theosophy and all this other shit just so you could find out for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And very few people are willing to even entertain another idea because they're gonna get one piece of whatever truth is. And 2020 proves that, bro. When that whole Q debacle or whatever the fuck that was, and I was so ignorant to any of this shit, and I just started watching and peeping game and seeing certain people that I was getting information from now being like, you should trust this plan of sitting on your fucking ass.
That's another example.
Nothing.
Look,
And that
Q is
shit
another
was
example of infiltrating at the level of the grassroots, and then leading them into slaughter. Basically, what we saw were lambs to the slaughter with January 6th. Everybody who, not that they went into the Capitol and got arrested, but everybody who wore the Q hat and drank the Kool-Aid, yeah, they were all targets of a propaganda campaign to discredit and destroy them. And look what it's done. It's been destructive in every
yeah.
way.
And I get it, like full disclosure. I mean, the first 10 days into the lockdown when I'm like, whoa, this is really fucking happening. And like we talked about last time, it was some heavy shit. That came across my awareness and I'm like, I like the idea, I guess it gives some hope. And then by like the next week, I was like, this is just, and I'm going through my own spiritual awakening and shit. So I'm like, yo, this is the savior all over again. And that's what people got to realize is there's no one coming to save us. No one, nobody. There's nobody who is outside of you who is going to fucking save you. And when I realized how big of a pacifier Q just seemed to me, and then they were making a cult out of Trump, I was just like, what the fuck? And these were like extremely high level of conscious individuals is what I thought. You know what I mean? When I went through my experience and shit, it was so organic that I thought anybody talking about having an awakening actually had some sort of a mystical experience or just these Gnostic revelations came to them. Because to me, bro, I wasn't a conspiracy theorist. I was just somebody who was tormented by the mind, who sat the fuck down to learn how to meditate and get some relief from this mind. And then shit popped off so quick because of the perfect storm of self-development. You know what I'm saying? So I became
Yes, you're in the right place
I
internally
just
to,
someone who was just like
like what you said earlier about,
yeah.
because I think ultimately what you do with media or any religion is you externalize your center of control, your loci of control, and you're like, now my control or my center of power comes through the screen. You're giving authority over yourself and your own perceptions to this appeal to a higher power, the TV screen, your holy book or something. And I think until you take that back, you will never be a clear perceiver. You will always be misled. And the Q thing, you said it's like a pacifier. It really was. At the time, I even pointed out how the letter Q literally looks like a pacifier. And it took them away from perceiving for
Yeah, shit.
themselves.
I think I probably got that from you. I was probably using your term by calling it a pacifier, to be honest with you.
Well, it totally did, because now instead of becoming seekers, they became believers. And I think that's the main distinction. Seekers become knowers, and believers fight with other believers. And I try to get away from this subjective world where it's just different belief systems competing, and I'm more interested in people who are seeking the truth, even if we don't agree on things. So you and I might not agree 100% necessarily on like 9/11, for example, but we're both ardently seeking the truth, and that's the main difference between people who accept the mainstream or the counter narrative, and they're not making any progress. So there's a big difference.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think that or to think of and remember the people that I saw get caught in that narrative who was like talking about we were all going to be given our land, like Nasara or some magical shit was going to happen, and everybody was just going to get all this money and just chill in the house. I even heard people going as far as um, Trump made sure that all the jabs were like saline or whatever
Yeah,
it was, like some
saline
harmless.
for the good
And
guys.
I'm like,
Oh God.
homie, yeah. I'm like, dude, that's. I believe in some pretty fucking wild shit, and only because of my experience. But that just sounds retarded. Like and these were coming from channels that I was like, damn, this is coming from somebody that I would have never thought in the world would have been down with even talking about this type of shit. Now, I don't mind conversation, and like I said, man, when you hear the narrative at first and like these evil, diabolical geniuses, the Q thing sounded somewhat like something to hold on to. And then when I'm like, yo, there's nobody's gonna come and fucking taking it. Like, there's nobody gonna come here and take over this and be like, yeah, this was all for your own good. And I even looked at my daughter and I was like, scratch what I said about that. We're just gonna fucking ride this shit out, focus on ourselves, and just stay out of fear. You know what I'm saying? But man, it was such a it was so much nonsensical stuff too, because these videos would be like, hey guys, trust the plan, trust the plan. This is all going to happen for us. We're all going to come out of this like, prosperous and all this. And then they would break and they would start like doing their ad reads for like emergency packs and shit like that. You
Or
know what I mean?
crypto. Look,
In case the 10 days of darkness come,
yeah, the
doom
10
and
days
gloom
of
shit,
darkness, but
prepper shit. But I was like,
weren't they all though pushing? Because I thought there's a connection here. A lot of them were pushing crypto what turned out to be like Ponzi
yeah,
schemes. But I think Q itself is a
yeah, a
Ponzi
lot of
scheme
them.
because you're like, okay, if you invest all your social capital, put all your social media into it, and put all of your effort into the Great Awakening, when it happens, since you got the inside knowledge from Q, you're going to win big. So I think they actually made the Q movement into a Ponzi scheme that went along with a lot of the crypto hype. It's a huge hype movement, and such a scam. It's definitely a scam.
And it became like a marketplace because there was like certain products that were being sold, and you know what I mean, like there was this angle of like, patriots make sure that you got this, you got this. So it's like, yo, prep all day but trust the plan. And that seems counterintuitive to be like, I
Yeah,
better go fucking prepare, you know what I mean, for the
that's
worst
when
of the worst. But
the term patriot, P-A-Y, patriot came out because it became a huge
yeah,
grift, and it's
yeah,
huge.
yeah, yeah, that was wild to see. So man, since I got you on here, I do have another question about 9/11, because you still got me like scratching my head over that, because I'm like, fuck, it's fun to think about. Like, I'm not like sitting in like any cognitive dissonance, because I had no other pre notions of this other than whatever they said was a lie. That's all I've ever clung to, was like, I know damn well it wasn't what the fuck they said it was, right? So I was able to, somewhat feel you on certain things that you were saying, to where I was like, okay, that's how it could be done. But what about all the footage, bro? Like, recently I was watching a podcast with a comedian on there, and he brought up this footage of these college kids all drinking, and then like they turn around and they catch it. Now, I'm probably asking a question I know the answer to, because you're probably going to say that it's faked, but I'm just curious on what you would say, because I just recently saw something that they were just like, did you ever see this one? And in my mind, I was like, how come we've never seen this one? Do you know
Right.
which video
And
I'm
I
talking
think, yeah,
about? They're like all
that's,
drinking.
yes. And then
And
the
she
guy's
turns around,
like,
she goes, oh my God.
and she says, was it a
Flies right
plane? He says,
over.
no, it just exploded out of nowhere, and it was like a bomb. I remember that one. And what I think happened is what we had that day was a show, kind of like a rocket launch. It's just a big theatrical production where I think they use bombs or pyrotechnics. They did explode some stuff. They did, in fact, use military concealment smog. All that smoke you saw was actually just concealment fog that the military uses with generators. I think the bodies were shot from pneumatic cannons that they were just basically launched dummies. But a few things about it. There were so many drills being conducted. There were so many plainclothes actors that we don't know that they were legitimate witnesses, but they may have been. But whatever they saw obviously didn't include a plane. It didn't include any special effects. So they just saw the raw thing happening, which was an explosion, which could have been anything. So that is likely real. But in my opinion, most of the footage that's being released out there, if it didn't contain a plane, they probably had no reason to promote it, so it just never got out. But I think there could be some authentic footage here and there. But there is no authentic footage.
Yeah, I think the video. I think the video they're talking about. I don't know if we're talking about the same one. It seems like it's recently been making its rounds, but I don't really be paying attention to shit, bro. But I believe they reference a plane in it. Like they're like, oh my god, a plane just hit the, and it like shows the plane fly. Like you see the belly of the plane, I believe, from their angle,
Oh,
and
okay.
it goes into that bit.
Yes, I know which one you're
It's
speaking
like a
of.
newer one. They're like college students, like being like, tell mom it's apple juice or something, and they're all drinking beer. They're getting like faded like in the morning because that shit happened in the morning, right? So that's the one I'm talking about, and it just shows. I mean, it clearly shows a plane. Now I know that we live in a world of deception, and it ain't shit to put some plane there. But I'm just curious of what your theory is on so-called raw footage
I would have to look
of
at that one in
planes going
particular.
into it.
Yeah, because there's a couple of examples, and we'll have to go through and pick these bits out. But for example, what I think.
I think you could find it under like NYU students witness 9/11 or something like that.
Okay, okay, I'll have to look at that because I think for the most part, what we were looking at was a controlled demolition with what would be a video layer compositing. So you have a pre-recorded animated vision or version of a plane, and you just put it on top of the footage and you show it overlapping so it appears to correspond perfectly with the explosion. And so when it comes to any of this footage, I have to assume fakeable and doctored until proven otherwise. And does it comport with the other footage? So I'm going to have to look at it. And one other point, we were looking at, there's a few other ones that recently came out where you see a guy who catches at 8:46 a.m. the explosion, but he's actually focusing on a billboard for the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Collateral Damage. Collateral Damage was altered before it was released because it had scenes similar to 9/11, including hijackers. So it's another example of predictive programming perfectly aligning with the event real time at that
Yeah.
moment. And my contention is that the guy who filmed that billboard, that bit of footage, that he was a plant. He was put there, and it was probably not put into the main circulation. But I'm just saying it's too perfectly timed. So I happen to think that most of the footage that's there, given the presence of entities doing drills, is likely planted and doctored. But I'll have to see it, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess another thing I'll say about it is I keep hearing about this Project Bluebeam, right? And if I'm willing to keep an open mind about them showing us some massive disaster that isn't gonna be real, then maybe they've already done that to us. Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, as
Because
in,
everybody keeps on talking about Project Bluebeam and there's gonna be some crazy ass thing and they're gonna show it and it's not gonna be real. And I'm like, maybe, I'm not saying it is, but it's a possibility that they've already done that. Hence 9/11 being augmented reality, basically, is what you're saying. You know what I mean?
exactly,
Because
exactly,
this bitch
exactly.
really is more the Truman Show than anything. It's more the Truman Show than the fucking Matrix because motherfuckers ain't out here really tapping into some shit either. They're just going along with this. So,
So truthers are out
yeah, I
there
don't know, man.
waiting
It's
for Project
interesting to think
Bluebeam,
about.
like they're waiting for some kind of grandiose display in the sky, and they're gonna say, "Oh, it's Project Bluebeam," when all along it came through the TV. And I think that is actually how it happened. I think that is the case.
Well, I'm I'm curious on your take on this gentleman's content. He goes by Archaics. Have you got wind of that? It's pretty culty over there, but he has some pretty interesting information. And I don't want to say that though because I know Saul Luckman fucks with his information, and I really fuck with Saul Luckman just as an artist and a writer, and he's just like a really interesting dude and shit. But the archaic shit seems a little, you know,
I'll
out there
I'll take a look
as
through it.
far as
If
the
you want to,
Phoenix guy.
yeah, feel free to like post any video links. I'll take a look at it. I know I've seen the channel. I'm pretty sure I've come across the content, but I'll go through and I'll do some reviews and I'll play it on here, and obviously I'll share the links if I find something there.
Yeah, it's nothing to him at all. It's nothing to him. He seems like, straight up dude and shit. I see when once somebody, they find a nugget of truth, it becomes gospel, and then we're playing the same game all over again. So I just kind of peep game in his comments on how touchy people are, and I don't know, man. He has some pretty interesting stuff, but his like, I guess I'll just post it and let him speak for himself though, because I don't want to butcher it. But I came across him recently, and some of his research does validate a lot of just feelings and just insights. Like I said, man, if people understood the reason why they do all this to us is because we are that powerful. We really are. I'm not trying to be like new age or anything, because they've really fucking just um they've really like done, it's so inverted, you know what I mean? And so like we're running from everything that we should be running into. And another reason why I really resonate with what you say about space and all this shit is because the further they put things out from us, like now Mars being the holy land and Mars being, where we all got to strive to be someday. And the more and more we focus on space and we focus on things outside of us, we don't realize that every answer we need in our life actually comes from going within and ignoring all the space and ignoring all the chatter and ignoring all the labels and society and all the fucking dogma and all the bullshit. And the more you do that, the more you will like align with gnosis, man. You will know God for a fact, and it will make sense to you. It will make, because I know people are going to be like, look at all this fucking, look at the world we're in. How can you believe in God? Well, everything is God. And I don't want to get all preachy here, but literally you're having the experience. So as I keep saying, empower yourself with that, people. But
Awesome.
yeah, man, go within, and we can one can really see how fucking fraudulent this is. Now I know I'm preaching to the choir on here, but it's one thing to see it, and then it's another thing to be empowered by it regardless. And I like to empower people through my conversation, so that's why I took it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what it comes down to. I think people are plugged into the 24-hour news cycle, and they're actually caught up in a form of emotional abuse with mass media, which is a highly narcissistic construct. And as long as you're plugged into it, it's to your detriment. And sometimes you don't even realize what it's taking from you because it's distracting you from something that might be more important. And so you're totally right about that. You get away from their false idealism, their Mars Utopia BS, and you focus on what you can perceive because, yeah, they're definitely in the business of taking us out of the real world and putting us into their simulation for all intents and purposes.
And yet again, that's why I appreciate what you cover, because you don't only cover the goofy ass left right paradigm, but you take it to these soulless ass celebrities, man. You take it to the people who got more minds than the politicians do. And so I always find it funny when, well, not funny, but I find it, I don't want to be judgmental. I find it interesting when I have conversations with people and they'll talk about how conscious they are and the awakening and this, that, and the third. And then they'll go and they'll bump some soulless agenda pushing ass fucking puppet. And I'm like, you ain't aware to that mental uh, attack right there. You know what I mean? And I know everybody got their own path and their own time, but you cover it all, sir. And I appreciate that, because I think celebrities got us way more fucked up than the politicians do, especially in the hood and neighborhoods that I'm in or that I grew up in or that I come from. And I don't even come from the hoodiest hoods, homie. I'm just saying that shit was a mind virus. That shit was by design. And the CIA and all kinds of motherfuckers had their hand in it from the jump. It wasn't just misdirected for commercial value. Like, they fucked us up, bro. They filled the prisons over the culture we cling to the fucking most, man. They filled the prisons, bro, by design and shit. So
Well, hey,
that's why I salute you, Tim.
I appreciate your call. Excellent points here, and what you bring up about celebrities and their influence. Key information here, it really is, because anybody on the world stage is only going to be able to communicate from within that box. They're in their Truman shows. And what we offer here is truly an off world stage perspective. We've stepped outside of it. And anybody on the inside is obviously controlled opposition, they're dupes, or they're distractions. So, great points there about celebrities. And you're right, they're way more influential than people think. This is idol worship, in my opinion. literal idol worship.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Like to the utmost. You know what I'm saying? You could talk some shit about Jesus, but say something about Tupac or Eminem, homie.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers that want to
Yep.
fight you and shit. You know what I'm saying? You can say something about their savior and their Messiah, but say something about Tupac, man. Say something about Eminem, and motherfuckers are ready to go. So anyway, bro, I'm glad you took my call again, man. I've been enjoying these and shit, and I keep putting them on my channel just to get us both out there, get this information, these conversations, and, you know, the word, as I call it, out there.
Yeah, please keep it up, and I'll dig up some of these 9/11 clips and I'll comment on some of them and kind of proffer my perspective on what they mean, you know, as far as the bigger picture. So again, thanks for the call. Have a great night.
Hell yeah, for sure. See you later, man. Or talk to you later.
Awesome. All right, we have phones open tonight. Great callers as usual. Elephant Tusk says, "Damn, I missed this guy's call." Yeah, just rewind or go to ips.monster and you'll get the archives tonight. Going through your comments, see if we've missed anything here. A lot of people agreeing. Psy Girl says, "Archaic revival, Joseph Atwill." Yeah, I need to get in contact with Joseph Atwill. I'm an admirer of his work, and he really defined this concept of typology, biblical typology. And one of the points I wanted to make today is Donald Trump is metascripted. He is a typology. He is a Christ typology.
Wake up. If you're mentally weak, y'all, spiritually they feast, y'all. You better check your masters and your motherfucking sheep, y'all. If you're mentally weak, y'all, spiritually they feast, y'all. You better check your masters and your motherfucking sheep, y'all.
Oh shit, no shit, boy, he can go shit. Never did fuck with the fake or the hoe shit. Whoa shit, notice game when I spoke this. Getting evident that I got a lot of gnosis.